Welcome to the Albuquerque Journal Midweek Blitz High School Football Show with your hosts, James Yodice and Jeff Grammer. This show is sponsored by Western New Mexico University.
Welcome, everyone. You are watching the Midweek Blitz, the Albuquerque Journal's high school athletics podcast. Primarily, we're talking high school football here in the fall. So welcome to this week's show. We got a lot to get to today. We're going to recap a little bit of what happened in Week 10. We're going to get to some of the big games in Week 11, and there are quite a few of them. We got some other items on the menu as well. And for the first time since Jeff left as my partner, I've got a guest here in studio today, Bethany Miller, a sports reporter and anchor from KOAT TV. Welcome, Bethany.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. We've been wanting to get you in here for a few weeks, so glad to have you here. Bethany and I pick high school football games and have been doing that for the last 3 seasons. So we have a lot of fun with that. And this year's been hard to pick.
It's been so hard.
We've had more parity and we've had more close games.
Yes.
Which I enjoy as a reporter.
Correct.
That's always good. But when it comes time to make picks, I can't tell you how many close games, and you know this, how many close games both of us have missed this year because of a late score or something like that. So it's been a lot of fun to pick this year, and we still have a lot of great games to pick, this week to end the regular season and into the playoffs. So before we start talking football, I wanted to visit with you a little bit about your background. So you came here 2 summers ago,
Yes.
2021, from Evansville, Indiana.
Yes.
Something I wanted to ask you and have not been able to that I will ask you here. Indiana is a basketball state.
Yes.
New Mexico is a basketball state.
Yes.
I don't want to necessarily ask you about the basketball part, but I'd be curious to get your input about how each of these states, us and Indiana, approach high school football with passion, interest. Midwest, such a different vibe from what we have here in New Mexico. What has been your observation?
I think without getting too detailed and into it out of my experiences, I think that it's a little different here because of the stadiums. I think that was the first thing that I was like, whoa, there's 3. Because I understand that not a lot of the high schools here, there's not enough land for each of them to have their own stadiums. But I think that does greatly affect the atmospheres. I think when you are at your own school, you're in your own stands, you have your own fans, you're in your locker room at your place, I think it greatly affects how you approach the game. And so I think Indiana had that on lock. They were a basketball state. The way that they approached high school football was absolutely insane. I have never experienced anything like it. Obviously, the talent, first of all, I walked into, that was my very first job out of college. I was covering 3 Division I prospects, one who was drafted by Cincinnati. Others were they were incredible. The athletes that I was covering, one who got got selected by Purdue, but they're so talented. And when that was just Southern Indiana, then when you get into the Indianapolis schools, they're getting recruited by Big Ten schools on the reg. So I just think that was a little bit of a different animal when covering them. But the way that it kind of reminds me of a fan base here that I can compare it to is La Cueva, when I roll into their games a little bit early for a live shot and see their entire fan base in the parking lot tailgating. That is every single school in Indiana. Every single team, every single school, they host tailgates. They've got companies hosting tailgates. It is, you ride or die for your alma mater so hard. And I know that there's schools that do that here, but I do think it's a little bit different. But I have enjoyed it a lot covering New Mexico. I think what people don't understand for us at KOAT, and you a little bit somewhat too, we cover every single team in the state, or try to, at least to the best of our abilities. I cannot, unfortunately, drive to Bulldog Stadium and cover Artesia on the reg. I would love to. So we really stick a lot in person in the metro. We love to get out there and do that, but it's been really fun so far, third season.
And I was going to ask you, how many chances have you had to get outside the metro area and experience some, now, especially in southeastern New Mexico? Bulldog Bowl is the most famous venue we have, more than University Stadium, more than Aggie Memorial Stadium. This is the most famous football venue in New Mexico. So I was going to ask you if you have had a chance at all to really experience some of these other environments, and it must be tough.
I've never, not in person at a game, because I am shooting a game at 7. I'm going back, I'm editing it, producing it, and then I'm on camera and in studio and live and KOAT. So there's not much I can do, and I like to stay local because, stuff happens. Your car breaks down, you get stuck in traffic, you have to edit a game, whatever, something happens. But I have wanted to go. I did get to go down to Roswell 2 years ago, and I did the story on New Mexico Military Institute going to the Junior College Division Championship, National Championship. But I want to go to the Bulldog Bowl so bad. And they've been great with us. They've done Zooms with us. They've sent us video, and we're covering them. But I have already said if Artesia Roswell is the state championship this year, I'm there.
I hear you. And, if it wasn't going to be the same night as the 6A game, I probably would want to go too, because I just covered the game in Roswell week before last, and it was such a great, environment. Those two schools have such, and that apparently is the longest running rivalry in New Mexico.
It is.
The oldest, I believe, 1909 maybe?
1909. Thank you, Artesia Football, for putting that on Twitter.
Yeah, so, those two, that's 114 years of playing football. I love that about that. And that's what makes southeastern New Mexico football so unique from the rest of the state. And long before you got here, we had Mayfield and Las Cruces just beating the crap out of all the Albuquerque teams, out of La Cueva, Cibola, Volcano Vista, El Dorado, all the good teams that would pop up. Highland back when they were a large school. And those two teams from Cruces had, I'd say, a run of 15, close to 20 years of dominance, where they were either one or both of them were in the state final just about every year. And it's hard to imagine that, because now we have sort of that new dynamic with Rio Rancho and Cleveland. Cleveland has, won multiple state titles, so is Rio Rancho. It's shifted a bit, and now, of course, Mayfield is in a lower classification, which changes the nature of that rivalry. But the southern part of the state, the southeastern part of the state, the football there, the vibe, the electricity, the passion that the communities have, just like you described from Indiana, is so much different. I remember Jeff Lynn, the Roswell coach, when I showed up at Wool Bowl Friday before last, I was just sitting on the sideline, just watching the teams warm up, and Jeff came over to say hello, and he said, "You don't get this kind of vibe in Albuquerque." And I said, "You're absolutely right. Other than like a La Cueva El Dorado game, or maybe a Cibola Volcano Vista game, you don't get that here."
I want to experience that so bad.
Yeah, so I like to get out on the road and experience that as best I can. I was also curious too. On a typical Friday night for you and Ron Burke, how early in the week did the two of you start planning or plotting your Friday night football show? Because obviously New Mexico is one of those states you can't get to every game. I can't get to every game, even on the phone, let alone a TV station trying to get there with a camera. It's just not feasible or possible. How early in the week did the two of you sit down and start thinking about any particular Friday night, games that you need to get to, games that you want to get to, and how you're going to script your show?
I would say, I start planning, I do a full list and compilation of all the games probably in mid-August, right before the season goes off. I literally go through every single schedule on Max Preps, and I make an Excel spreadsheet of what the weeks will look like, so that when I'm in the thick of it, I don't have to worry about that. I would say on Sunday nights, whilst the 10 is going on, I go through, and while I'm doing that list, I always highlight the games that I know we can get to. So all of the Metro games, all the ones in Los Lunas, all the ones even in Santa Fe and beyond. We also get a lot of help from our sister station in El Paso, who covers Las Cruces. They've also started covering Gadsden and Santa Teresa for us. And then we also have had a lot of help from KSVP TV. They cover a lot of Roswell, Goddard, Artesia, and they broadcast the games, and they've been so kind to let us use their highlights. So yes, Sundays, I would say I would take a good hard look at it. And actually, 30 minutes ago, we have our meeting, our rundown planning meeting. We go through it. We have assignments. We get a lot of help from our station. They're so on board with doing that. And then really it's producing the show, stacking the show, doing all that stuff on Thursdays. Fridays are literally 12-hour days. And then for me, working solo on Saturdays, especially this time of year, I'm like, okay, how do I get to 4 1 p.m. high school football
I busted your chops the other day. You got a touchdown from one team, a touchdown from the other, and you were out the door, and I'm like, where are you going?
There's so much game left.
You're like, I got things to do.
I got things to do.
Yeah,
I got other games to go to. But yeah, and with Saturdays, I'm a lot more limited on time. I would normally stay longer. But yeah, Friday nights are crazy, but that is what I live for. Friday night high school football. I never want to not be in a place that doesn't value high school football, because I think it is literally the epitome of sports. And I mean, that's where people cultivate their love for it, and players cultivate their love for it. And it's been so fun, covering it so far. And I came right after COVID. So I think I kind of nailed it a little bit.
Right.
I came right when it was picking back up. So it's been really fun to do it. But yeah, the show is a labor of love, I will say.
So last thing, before we start getting into the actual nuts and bolts of the week, you went to the University of Alabama.
Roll Tide.
Of course, anyone that knows me knows how much I hate Nick Saban. I bust your chops about this from time to time. How did you end up at Alabama? What was that experience like, being part of the Crimson Tide family?
It is so funny because people ask me that all the time. My high school football team, when I'm from a very small town in Pennsylvania, they won 1 game my 4 years. So people always are like, why Alabama? I'm like, I didn't want to experience snow anymore. I'm from a small town. I wanted to be where 1 million people were. and I wanted to watch good frickin' football. Okay. And so I picked University of Alabama. Of course, they have a great journalism program. I'm here. I'm doing what I'm doing because of that. But it was amazing. I saw 2 national championships in my time there. Covered one. The one I covered was in the locker room and on the field for was the Tua Tagovailoa.
Where he came in for Hurts. Right.
Well, yeah, the SEC championship. And then, yes, he was in the Natty. He threw in overtime to Devontae Smith, and you could hear a pin drop because I love telling the story because it was probably like a room about this size. And in those big games, if you have like camera equipment, like if you have like a camera or whatever, you cannot be on the field whatsoever. Like newspaper guys can be out there as long as you don't have any equipment. But for all the TV people who would like storm the field afterwards and try to get interviews, you cannot be on the field. So they put us in this room. It was like a concrete room about this size with 2 TVs. And this is when the Georgia guy went to go kick the game-winning field goal. He missed it, whatever. When Tua got sacked. And mind you, I had just graduated from Alabama weeks prior, so I'm trying actively to be an adult and separate my professionalism and my fandom. There was other grads in there.
You were a
with me.
December graduate.
Yes, I was a December graduate. And so I'm like in there, I'm like, whoever wins this game, I still have to cover it. Like whether it's Georgia or Alabama,
Right.
like I have to compartmentalize that. When Tua got sacked, we were like, oh my goodness. And then all of a sudden, I'm not even kidding you here. There's probably 30 people in that room. You could hear a pin drop when the ball went up to Devontae Smith. And then the minute he caught it, it was a dash to the field. I was like hurdling ropes, trying to get to Nick Saban. Bradley Bozeman was proposing to his girlfriend on the field. Tua was hugging his family. I'm like, what is happening? This is my life.
So quick sidebar, why could you not have cameras on the field? I don't understand
I think it's like a NCAA rule. I think it's
like a copyright infringement thing?
I would think so because like when I was at the Mississippi State game during the regular season, like you can be on the field with 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter and you can have your camera equipment and everything and you can film the aftermath of the game. But I think it's an NCAA copyright because in the Sugar Bowl and in the national championship, you cannot have equipment on the field.
See, another reason why I say my beat is the best, I don't have to worry about being legislated within an inch of my life by the NCAA or the NFL or whoever.
And getting tackled with a literal 30-pound camera on, it was crazy. It was nuts.
Wow. Okay. That is crazy.
Roll Tide.
So, as we segue, we're going to start talking a little bit about high school football. We're coming off week 10. I cannot believe it seems like just
yesterday.
5 minutes ago, I was at the Bernalillo Valley game on that first Thursday night, August 17th, and here we are,
12 to 10 or something.
Yeah,
14,
and we're
12?
4 days away from the regular season being over. So I want to hit on some of the quick highlights, and we'll go through this quickly. So, Rio Rancho beats Volcano Vista 24-17, which causes some turmoil now in the 6A bracket. Volcano Vista, I thought, was a lock for a number 4 seed and a first-round bye if they win this game. They did not win this game. Now we have a situation where I think it's either Rio Rancho or Los Lunas that's going to end up with a first-round bye. Now, this is assuming that Cleveland beats Rio Rancho, which is no guarantee, and this is assuming that Los Lunas beats Clovis on Friday, which I think is a safe guess. So, the first-round bye here, and I'm not sure how Indiana did it, but
so crazy.
Yeah, the first round here, we have 12 teams, so the 4 top seeds all get a first round bye. So that's a big deal. In other sports, in basketball, it doesn't matter because everybody has to play in every round anyway. In football, it makes a difference. In soccer, it makes a difference where you have the top 4 seeds get a bye into the quarterfinals. So Rio Rancho wins 24-17 with a touchdown very late in the game by J.J. Ariano. They're very speedy and athletic quarterback.
Very good.
So that's a tough loss for Volcano. Volcano is still in position to get a first round home game, which is good, but they're going to have to play on that first weekend now. Rio Rancho will have to see. They play Cleveland. That game was moved from 7 p.m. Friday to 6 o'clock on Friday, so we'll see how Rio Rancho fares against Cleveland. Cleveland has had great success against all the top-ranked teams on their schedule. They beat up on La Cueva. They beat up on Centennial. They beat up on Volcano Vista. All 3 of them were multiple touchdown victories. Now Rio Rancho will shoot its shot, and we'll see what happens. But Rio Rancho coming off a big win and now in a position to maybe get that number 4 seed, which is something I'm sure they're thinking about. Valley High School, which has had a very strange season, going back to their strike with Belen way back in early September. I think that was September 1st. Valley beats Los Alamos last week, 26-23, a really entertaining game at Milne Stadium. Valley scored late to win that game. Charles Lopez Burton, we'll talk about him in a second, had a big night. That was a nice win. That clinches a district title for Valley. That probably gets them a first-round home game in the 5A bracket. That was something they were really eyeing because Los Alamos beat Valley last year in this same week and flipped it. Los Alamos got a first-round home game. Valley had to go on the road. So Valley will get to stay at home at least for the first week. Espanola Valley, which is a good example in New Mexico of talking about New Mexico being a basketball state Espanola is a pure basketball community. So this is only Espagnola's second district football title. They beat up on Moriarty, a score which I haven't gotten one game as wrong as I did this one. I picked Moriarty. You picked Espanola.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I don't think any game on the entire schedule I got more wrong than this one. Espanola beats Moriarty 50-0. And I saw Moriarty. That score really threw me for a loop.
Yeah, I've seen him play too. They're tough.
Yeah, of course I've seen Moriarty. I've not seen Espanola,
Sure.
but that score really threw me for a loop to see Espanola work over Moriarty like that. But that's a second district football title for Espanola, where basketball reigns. And you wouldn't know this because you haven't experienced it yet.
Yeah.
When Espanola is good in boys, especially in boys basketball, when they come down to the pit, it's insanity. We've had several championship games in the pit on that championship Saturday where Espanola was in the championship game, and it was just a nut house inside the pit. It's hard to describe unless you actually experience it, but they love their basketball. They're not a football town. New Mexico's not a football state. We're just not. And that's okay. That's our identity.
A-okay.
Espanola is a great example of a school that doesn't usually do well in football because they channel so much of their energy and passion into basketball. So congratulations to Espanola Valley. They've secured the district title. Doesn't matter how they do against Pewaukee Valley this week. They're going to be the district champion after beating Taos in week 9 and then beating Moriarty last week. La Cueva is the other team I wanted to mention. La Cueva.
I was at that game.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about them a little bit later, but they have been playing some, I would describe it, and I put this in a social media post, ruthless football. They beat Sandia 51-0 in a game that was over at halftime. And Sandia is not a bad football team at all. La Cueva, after that 0-3 start, which included a forfeit to Rio Rancho, and then they got beat pretty handily by both Centennial and Cleveland, they have a ton of momentum as we get into last week. Now, they're going to be on the road at Farmington this week, but that's not a game La Cueva should slip up, I don't think. La Cueva's playing with attitude, I would describe.
Yes.
I think they just want to put their foot on people's throats right now and press down. And I think that's their whole mentality right now. After that 0-3 start, they found their footing, and they're beating up on some good teams. They've beaten some teams that are not as high quality, but Sandia's a good football team.
Yeah.
I mean, to put 51 up, and that's a good defense. They put 51 up on a pretty good Sandia defense in a half. That's crazy.
It was like methodical. I was there, and it was like there was not a question that they were not going to score. It was just like, oh, okay, who's the touchdown going to be to like this time? It was crazy.
Yeah, and Cam Dyer is really coming into his own. Aiden Armenta was the La Cueva quarterback last year and was a tremendous pocket passer. Cam is not that. Cam has much more of a running element to his game that Aiden Armenta did not. And Cam, I think, is starting to come into his own. He's got some good weapons. Tight end Cruz Markham. He's got Jackson Hicks. He's got Cheeto Lambrera in the backfield. They've got some weapons that are starting, I think, to blossom a bit at just the right time of year as we get ready to start the playoffs. And, of course, La Cueva will have a bye in the first round. But, that's a team that I'm really interested to watch in November because they are really just sledgehammering everybody in their path right now.
Yes.
And, boy, it'll be interesting if they come across Cleveland or Centennial or both in the playoffs.
I'm wanting that. I want to see the rematch.
The way it's going to look is Cleveland's going to end up being a 1 seed, I think, as long as they don't stumble this week. And then we're going to have La Cueva and Centennial in the 2 and 3 slots, which means they'll be seeded to play each other in the semifinals. I'm not sure where that game would be.
I was going to say, is that on the road?
I was at the first game at the Field of Dreams in Cruces, and Centennial was a better team that day.
Yeah.
And they've got a great quarterback, Daniel Hernandez. Would be interesting to see those two share the field again. But I think that's what we're going to end up seeing down the road. As we segue again, talk about our picks last week. And you've been struggling a bit. I've been trying to stay away from that on social media. I've been drumming you pretty good.
That's hilarious.
I know. It's not fair to you. You've only been in New Mexico a couple of years. You haven't had time to get to know all these communities and appreciate
so willy-nilly with
history.
it too.
No, that's okay. I understand. And like I said, you haven't been here long enough to appreciate the history and of some of these rivalries in schools.
Yeah.
So I get it. So last week, 18-4 for me. I'm still hovering around 80%, which is about the lowest I can accept. You were 15-7, but like I said, you hit the Espanola game.
I did hit the Espanola game.
Boy, man, I saw that score and I thought,
you're like,
man,
how did that happen?
I'm gonna have to eat my words on that one. And here I am chewing gladly.
Love it.
We both missed on Farmington.
Yeah,
But that's a game. El Dorado scores with 20 seconds left in the game to win. I only saw the fourth quarter of that game. I was at another game at Community Stadium, and I hustled up to Wilson Stadium, and I got there. It was 32-32 when I arrived, and just the fourth quarter that I watched was insanity on both sides of the ball. And Charlie Dotson, the El Dorado coach, told me afterwards it was like that the whole game. And
I'm jealous.
you have an in with El Dorado, so
I do.
you can appreciate this.
I appreciate it, but I'm a professional bystander, so I'm like, I don't care. I hope everybody has fun. I'm kidding. You have seen a lot of their good games this year, which I'm very jealous of, because like I have to leave by the first quarter, but that Atrisco Heritage El Dorado game way back when, you're like, still time to come back. I'm like, should I? It was crazy. I love games like that.
You know, and it's funny, that Atrisco Heritage game could very well end up being the difference between El Dorado getting into the playoffs and not. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So, as we segue, I want to get into, real quick, our high school football star nominees from Week 10. We got a couple of videos here during this quick segment. First candidate, Wyatt Gomez, senior quarterback from Lovington. He threw 5 touchdown passes for the Wildcats. They came up here Friday afternoon, beat Albuquerque Academy 43-26. I had a chance to speak with Wyatt after the game for a minute. Here's what he had to say.
Okay, we're with Lovington quarterback Wyatt Gomez. Big day for you today. Lovington beats Academy 43-26. Just talk about how you guys got it done today.
We just had to finish. They came out strong, and they attacked us early and scored, so we had to come out and finish stronger than them, and that's the only thing we had to do.
What was the game plan against that defense? It's a pretty good defense.
So we were just trying to get the ball to our receivers and let them win out in space. That's what they're best at, so we're just trying to let them do that and just win.
As your coach just said, now you have a chance to go play for a district championship next week, probably against Portales. Let's talk about that. It's a fun rivalry game. What about next week now?
Yes, sir. We got to get ready for that. Have good practice, have a good week of practice, and just get ready for them. We can't worry about what just happened today. We got to worry about next week, Friday, Portales.
Hey, how tough is it to make a long road trip and play a day game like this?
It's tough. It was like 7. I never done nothing like this, so it was kind of different, but it was good. It's something to learn because later on we're gonna have to play at 3 or whatever.
So our next candidate, James Vautier, junior quarterback from Manzano. Manzano had a big win over Del Norte last week, and Vautier threw for 6 touchdown passes. Manzano beat Del Norte, who's really struggling, 63-8. Nice night for James. Justin Black, senior wide receiver from Hobbs, 5 catches, 190 yards, and a touchdown in a win for the Eagles over Oregon Mountain. Adon Hawkes from Silver. This is the game I was at before I went up to El Dorado and Farmington the other day. He threw for 7 touchdowns, and I mean, that was like in barely 3 quarters of work against St. Pius in a 46-0 victory. He threw 6 touchdown passes in the first half. He's a senior quarterback. Silver, one of those teams that's going to be in contention for a 4A title. I think it still runs through Portales and Bloomfield at the moment. We'll see. Portales plays Lovington this week. That is a huge game in 4A. One of those games you wish you could be in 5 different places, right? You know, you'd love to, like you said, you would love to be in Bulldog Bowl.
I would love it.
I would love to be in Lovington to watch this game. You know, so many games you wish you could just get a piece of and just see it. It can be frustrating because New Mexico is such a vast state. It's impossible to get to everyone. And then our last candidate, he's a repeat guy, Charles Lopez Burton, senior running back from Valley, who puts the ball on the deck 2 times on the very first 2 possessions for Valley. And then comes back and runs, by my count, for 262, 3 touchdowns in that 26-23 victory for Valley over Los Alamos that clinched the district. I spoke with Charles after the game. This is what he had to say.
So we are visiting with Valley running back Charles Lopez Burton, who scores a game-winning touchdown tonight with 1.5 minutes left. You guys won the district title. Just give me your emotions at the moment.
You know, it feels absolutely amazing. You know, last year we ran into the same game, but the outcome wasn't what we wanted, you know? So this year we went to work, and we knew exactly what we wanted and how to prepare for it.
Okay. So have you guys been thinking about playing them since you lost to them last year?
Definitely. You know, Coach has had that name on the board for a while now. We walked into the locker room, and we already know what time it is.
So I'm wondering how your confidence was. You had 2 early fumbles in this game, and Coach obviously decided to keep going to you. You've been such a workhorse, and you've been really dependable. But I'm wondering how your confidence was after putting the ball on the deck a couple of times.
You know, definitely after those 2 fumbles, I couldn't put my head down. I had to keep going and keep pushing through it. You know, and look at where we are now. Shout out to my team, especially my team.
And that's such a drive. You guys started that game-winning drive at your 11. Let's talk about that. I mean, you guys probably were only going to get 1 more possession, and you guys go 89 yards for the touchdown.
Yeah. You know, that was a great play. That was definitely a great play. So
now you guys have a chance to think about the playoffs. What are What are your thoughts about, getting in there and how much damage you guys might be able to do?
We got to enjoy this one tonight, and then from now on, we got to prepare for playoffs. We got to get ready. We got to lock in, because the boys know what time it is now.
Okay. So I took a quick gander as Bethany and I sit here in the studio on Wednesday afternoon. I took a quick gander at the poll results as of this afternoon. James Vautier, the quarterback from Manzano, 59%. Charles Lopez Burton from Valley has most of the rest of the votes, 38%. As always, fan bases, you can vote on our website all the way through the end of the week, really, and we'll announce the winner this coming Friday night and Saturday when we do our high school football page.
Education and training at Western New Mexico University is accessible from every corner of the land of enchantment, providing limitless opportunities for success for more than a century. And now, through the New Mexico Opportunity Scholarship, tuition and fees are covered for anyone looking to start or start over. Along with free tuition, books are always included for every WNMU student, assuring your only worry is how far you can actually go. Lift off toward your future and endless potential at WNMU today.
So, moving along, we're going to talk finally about Week 11 of the football season. We've got a lot of big games out there. Some districts have been settled, others have not. We're going to save El Dorado West Mesa for the last.
Ooh, a doozy.
And I'll let you weigh in because you probably have more information on that game than I do. So let's start in 6A. It's fun. We got three districts in Class 6A that have an outright district championship game this week. Las Cruces and Centennial are playing at the Field of Dreams. Rio Rancho is hosting Cleveland on Friday at 6 o'clock. And then we have Las Lunas at Clovis at 7 o'clock on Friday. All of those teams in all of those districts are all undefeated in league play. So winner gets the top seed, automatic berth into the playoffs. Las Lunas, as we talked about, we'll see. If Rio Rancho loses to Cleveland, boy, that's going to be tough. We're right on I'm not sure how it shakes out yet between Rio Rancho and Las Lunas. One of those two is going to get the number 4 seed and a bye. It would be Rio Rancho after what I saw from them against Volcano Vista.
Yeah.
I'll be at Friday's game, and we'll see how that works. Do you have a sense about Rio Rancho Cleveland this week?
I don't. I believe I picked Cleveland, spoiler alert, in it. I think that is a huge win that the Rams are coming off of against Volcano Vista immensely, but I just think Cleveland's kind of picked up a lot of momentum. I think kind of it's a little bit like the La Cueva. They're like, no one's going to stand in our way of getting this, and I think it's kind of personal at that point, especially when you think about how big this rivalry is. So I'm going Cleveland in this. I hope it's a great game. I hope it comes down to last drive. I love that kind of stuff, and that rivalry has produced a lot since I've even been here, so I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, and Cleveland has 3 losses, which is unusual for them, but they lost to a really good team in Friendship, Texas,
yes,
which probably would have done the same to any team in 6A in New Mexico. They lost in overtime to Amarillo High, a game in which Cleveland, I think, went for 2 points in the win.
Yes, they did.
And did not make it. So, they're 2 yards away from winning that game. They've had, and they lost 36-34 at Artesia. They were missing Strat Schufelt, which even Jeremy Maupin, the Artesia coach, told me, look, they're a different team when he plays.
Yes.
And they were missing Carter Weddle, who had caught 4 touchdown passes for Cleveland literally the week before against Las Cruces High School. He was missing and has been missing for a while, and his presence has been missed. So Cleveland doesn't have the same dynamic offense they had with Wysong, Evan Wysong last year, Nick Trujillo, and so on. So it's a different looking team.
Very different.
But they still have been the most physical team, and their defense has been outstanding. They kept Volcano Vista in check. They kept Centennial in check. They kept La Cueva in check. None of these teams scored more than, I think, 13 points against them. So, that defense still the best one out there in 6A, and everything still runs through Cleveland. Like I said, we'll see about Rio Rancho in a rivalry game like this. And
I think all bets are off.
This would apply to any state and any city.
Yes.
When you have a great rivalry game, you never know.
Never know.
You just never know. And which is one thing we love about these rivalry games. El Dorado, La Cueva, before Rio Rancho and Cleveland started playing each other. With those two teams, you could never quite tell.
Really?
Or the Aggies and Lobos.
Yeah.
You can never quite tell. Things can go differently. Things can get sideways in a rivalry game really fast, and you never can tell. So we've got all 3 of those games in 6A. A couple of games I wanted to mention quickly. Deming and Gadsden are going to play for a district title in 5A. That should be one of the game's best games of the weekend. Gadsden's had a tremendous season. They're going to be my pick in this game. Now, I have not looked at your picks yet.
I did pick Gadsden.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Gadsden as well.
Yeah.
And generally what I do is not that anybody cares.
I care.
On Monday or Tuesday, I send Bethany a list of all the games that are going to be on our list to pick. And then she will email me back with her picks. I do not look at them until I put my picks on the sheet.
Suspense.
I do mine first, and then I go through and look at your email and add them. So that way it keeps. I don't know. It preserves. I don't know. It preserves the mystery of it at all. But I like Gadsden in this game. But Deming's a fine team. So this is another one of those games that could go either way. And of course, a game that I referenced a minute ago, Portales and Lovington in 4A. Portales, I thought even going back to August when I was doing my preseason work, I thought Portales sounded like the best team on paper, and I think they have been the best team. I haven't seen anything that would convince me otherwise. Bloomfield is clearly the second best team out there, especially after Bloomfield went to Silver City 2 weekends ago and beat up on Silver 28-0. A game I got that game wrong too. I did not see Silver getting worked over like that at home. Bloomfield's clearly the second best team, and then I would say Lovington and Silver would come next. I'm definitely taking Portales in this game. They're unbeaten. They've been the best team.
By far.
By far. They're experienced. They're hungry, and I like them in this game, and I think that's your top seed, and I think everything in 4A goes through Portales.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, and then real quick, in Class 3A, we've got the best district in 3A is District 2. The key game this week is West Las Vegas and Robertson, who are playing at noon on Saturday. West Las Vegas leads the district. If they win this game, they win the district, top seed, top 4 seed, all of that. If Robertson wins this game, we're looking at a 3-way tie between West Las Vegas, Robertson, and St. Michael's, who's playing Santa Fe Indian School this week. That's a game St. Mike should win probably handily. We're looking at a 3-way tie, in which case St. Michael's will win the district. So there is a lot on the line in this district, which has always been the best district. I don't know if you had a chance to experience that.
I haven't. They're so close, but they're just over the edge where it's a little difficult to go get them. But I have always seen, their success. Obviously, Robertson has had a lot of success the past couple of years that I've been here. It'll be interesting to see, who comes out on top there. It's always fun for me when I haven't experienced this to see kind of who gets through to the playoffs and who makes the run. And it's always fun covering them. And we always talk to the coaches, before those games, and they've been nothing but kind. But yeah, I'm excited to see how that shakes out.
Yeah, good football in that district. And then the last game we're going to talk about, I'm just going to turn this over to you, is a game that is not for a district championship.
No.
But it is by far one of the most interesting games on the entire schedule this week. And that's going to be at Community Stadium on Friday night. It is El Dorado. It is West Mesa. The winner almost certainly is going to get into the playoffs. The loser, hard to say. I'm going to bring you in here because I almost hate missing this game because I think it's going to be one of those crazy desperation kind of games. Both teams know the score and where they stand. Give me your thought. You're inside the loop on this one.
The fun thing about making the schedule for the rundown is that I get to choose where I go. So I was like, I'm going to that game. I agree with you. I think it is going to be a very much so like desperation, and I think it's going to be the team that least lets that desperation get to them. I think that this could be a game where turnovers are key. I think we've seen that in weeks past. Elijah Brody has to take care of the football when he goes on his runs. El Dorado's defense has to step up when he goes on those runs. And I think it all also comes down to Brandon Olivas and how well he connects. We saw Jahari Moorhead really emerge as a kind of a big-time player for El Dorado last week, the true freshman. It'll be interesting. I hope everybody has fun. I did pick a team, but I'm excited to see it. It really is at the top of my list, along with Cleveland Rio Rancho. These games always make me nervous, like no matter who's playing, and I'm just they're two quality teams, and I think when it gets to playoff time and wanting to be in the playoffs, I think it'll be a really cool atmosphere.
And El Dorado, they just make me laugh. They're just one of those teams, man.
It's like, what are you going to get this week?
If you want to spend your money on a team, this is the one to go watch because they are involved in one crazy game after another. Farmington's game last week, El Dorado scores with 20 seconds left roughly and beats Farmington 44-40. They lose on the most stupid Hail Mary play ever to Atrisco Heritage 70-64.
70-64.
And then, of course, there was the game against Clovis in which they gave up 49 points in the first half. They're down 49-21 and still come back and win 64-56.
That was the game that you told me to come. It was the Clovis one. I was like, I know there's been 3 crazy games, and that one was absolutely bonkers.
You can make a case that those 3 were maybe the wildest 3 games
ever in
the Metro the entire season, and El Dorado had a hand in all of them. And honestly, I could see this game against West Mesa being exactly the same way.
Completely
Elijah
agree.
Brody is extremely special.
Very.
And Brandon Olivas, actually, he left the game against Farmington last week. When I got there, he was not actually in the game, and they were checking him right there on the sideline. and he finally came back in and led the game-winning drive. So they need him in the game.
Have to.
They cannot beat West Mesa, I don't think, without him healthy. So I think he's okay and good to go. But, man, Elijah Brody, there's nothing much you can do. When he starts freelance,
he's special.
it doesn't matter how good your defense is. He's just going to create issues because, he's big, he's strong, he's physical. You cannot tackle him one-on-one unless you're a superior tackler with great technical ability. He's one of those guys. You think I can't tell you how many times I've watched this kid in the last 2 years where I thought for sure he was going to get caught, thrown for a loss, or be tackled near the line of scrimmage, and he spins, he dekes, he moves, he removes some defender's ACL, and he ends up busting a 40-yard play, and you're thinking there's no way any other quarterback could do that. So he is such an X factor here.
He's the difference maker in this game for me.
Yeah, and of course, West Mesa hasn't won a district game. They need
really?
this. Nope.
I didn't know that.
They lost to La Cueva. They lost to Sandia in a close game.
That's a tough district.
They lost to Farmington, beat them up really good.
Yeah.
La Cueva pulled away in the second half. Sandia won a close game with them. I think it was 36-28.
Wow.
So this is it. West Mesa doesn't win. They finished last. And then, boy, I don't know. They're still on the bubble. El Dorado cannot afford to lose.
No.
West Mesa maybe could lose and still get in. They would be in a position where you got Atrisco Heritage in one district, Alamogordo in another district. Those three teams may end up, the Fighting Jeff Grammars. Those three teams may end up fighting for something. If it's El Dorado, much tougher position because of this loss to Atrisco. Alamogordo is a team that I don't know a lot about, but their resume is just good enough to sneak in. We'll have to see. But, El Dorado West Mesa is going to be a lot of fun.
A doozy.
So, money. El Dorado is definitely one of those teams. Even as a journalist, I'd gladly plunk down $5 or $10, whatever it costs to get into a game, and just watch them play because they're so unpredictable. They're crazy. They're involved in these wild games that just defy a description.
It's a great word, unpredictable.
Yeah,
it's totally.
So that will wrap up the football portion of it. But before we get out, I want to get to a couple quick things. Albuquerque Academy hosted its big cross-country meet last week in the Extravaganza, which is sort of the precursor to the state meet coming up on November 11th. We saw some of the same faces that we've seen during the course of the year win. On the boys' side, Rio Rancho's boys won. Charlie Voss from Rio Rancho, their star junior transfer from Ohio, he won again. He's won all but one of his races this year. He has been fantastic for them. On the girls' side, we had several individual champions coming from the metro area. Olivia Marquez from Oak Grove Classical, I believe, won the 1A, 2A race. Kate Henderson, who's been great. She's been the second best runner in the metro area the entire season. She finished first in the 3A race. I believe it was Anna Hastings from Academy that won the 4A race. And, of course, Gianna Raymer, for an eighth grader, for somebody who's not even in high school, she has been the most fun story in any sport for me this fall. She won by 2 minutes and 7 seconds, which is complete insanity at this level. The second fastest time in any other race was Kate Henderson from Sandia Prep, who has run second to Gianna at most of the big meets this year. Gianna wins this race by over 2 minutes, and she has been, she's an eighth grader. She goes to Hoover Middle School. She's running for El Dorado. She's been phenomenal this fall. She's so much fun to watch. She's just a great kid. She's just full of energy. She's a sweet kid. She's well-spoken. She's pretty humble, and she has been sensational. Adam Kedge, the longtime Academy cross-country coach, told me that she's the fastest girl he has seen in 20 or 30 years, and she's just an eighth grader. So I don't know if we're just witnessing the start of an epic prep career. Hard to say. Cross-country can be one of those weird sports. You're not sure, but Gianna has been spectacular. And the next time we see her in a big race will be at the state meet at Academy on November 11th. And last thing, before we get out, the state soccer brackets also come out on Sunday. In addition to football, state soccer will be out about 3 o'clock on Sunday. The football brackets will be out about 7:30 a.m. on Sunday. Unfortunately, there was a glitch with maxpreps.com. So the NMAA is not going to have their final computer rankings until very late in the evening on Saturday. New Mexico is, I was told, the only state in the country that usually releases its playoff brackets on Saturday night. The coaches want it that way. They want to start getting film together and start doing recon.
I'm in agreement.
On their first round opponents. But because of this glitch, the NMAA will probably have the brackets ready, but not until like maybe 11 p.m. midnight on Saturday. So that's not feasible to present it en masse to the state. So that's why they're doing it at 7:30 a.m. on Sunday. They're going to have on their NMAA app, they're going to have their show where they release the brackets so they can give coaches a chance to start getting film and information on their opponents right away. So that's why we're doing it at 7:30. I hate it. I'm not a morning person.
I was just about to say, I'd rather they release it at 11 or midnight.
Man, you know, when I was in college, I was a morning person. And gradually, when you work at a morning newspaper, you just become a night person. That's true for all of us. I don't know how it is for you.
Oh, I work sports. All sports happen at night. I'm a night person.
Yeah, so I got to be up by 7:30 Sunday morning, and I'm just dreadfully unhappy about that.
I'm already mad about it.
Fortunately, we'll have all the brackets by about 7:45, 8 a.m. on Sunday, and we'll have an idea of who's playing who. But anyway, if you were curious, that's why we're not going to have playoff brackets on Saturday night. We'll have them on Sunday morning instead. So next week, we'll talk about Week 11 games, and we'll get into first round of the playoffs. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up. Bethany Miller from KOAT, you're awesome for coming in.
Yeah,
Thank you so much
Thanks for having me.
for being my guest. I appreciate it. It was good to see you in person. This is the most you and I have talked since you got here.
Ever.
So great to have you here. Thank you so much for being our guest. Anyway, you can find our podcast, both my Midweek Blitz podcast and Jeff Grammer's podcast on Lobo basketball, which are always really interesting. Jeff's much more a veteran at this than I am. You can find them on abqjournal.com. We have a whole podcast network. This is still new. I just started doing these podcasts this year, so I'm still adjusting. But you can find, for anybody that's interested, you can find these podcasts. You can find the one with Bethany and I. You can find them on YouTube as well, I believe. But you can find them at abqjournal.com. And as always, we encourage you to read, hear, and watch us on these podcasts. In the meantime, thanks for your patience today. I know we went a little bit longer than usual. And thanks again to Bethany, and we will talk to you next week. Have a great weekend.